I never thought a work party could ruin my life. But here we are. Let me take you back to that fateful night. The night I found out who my so-called best friend really was. It all started like any other Friday at the office. The quarterly celebration, the usual crowd, half-hearted small talk, and the obligatory drinks to pretend we all liked each other. I was excited, actually. Why? Because my boss had hinted I was in the running for the promotion I'd been chasing for 2 years. Finally, some recognition for all those late nights and endless reports. I was ready. My best friend, Mark, was there, of course. The guy who had stood by me through thick and thin. Or so I thought. He showed up with that smug grin, a cold one in his hand, and that looked like he knew some secret that could blow my whole world apart. I laughed it off, thinking he was just being his usual sarcastic self. We found a spot by the snack table, and I was telling him about the new project I was spearheading. I could almost taste the promotion already. Then, out of nowhere, Mark's voice dropped just low enough for me to hear. "You really think you deserve it? With her?" he said, nodding toward my wife across the room. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard right. "Yeah, man, no offense, but well, let's just say she's not exactly going to boost your image. You think the boss cares about your spreadsheets when you show up with a wife like that?" It was like a slap in the face, except it wasn't the boss saying it. It was Mark, my friend, the one person I trusted. I laughed nervously. "Come on, man. That's harsh." But Mark just smirked. "I'm serious. People judge you by who you bring to the table. She's dragging you down." I felt my blood boil, not because of what he said about my wife, but because he said it in front of the whole damn office. The same office that was supposed to respect me. I wanted to say something clever, maybe punch him in the face, but I froze. And worse, I watched, as a few people nearby chuckled and whispered, Mark had humiliated me. And the worst part? I couldn't even get mad, because deep down, a tiny voice inside me wondered if he was right. If that was the real reason I was stuck in middle management while others got ahead. So I spent the rest of the night swallowing my pride and pretending I was fine. But the truth, that night marked the beginning of a war I never asked for. I went home feeling smaller than ever, looking at my wife with a mixture of guilt and anger. She had no idea what had happened. She just smiled, asked how the party was. And I lied. But I promised myself, if Mark thought he could humiliate me like that and get away with it, he was dead wrong. The game had changed. The next morning, I woke up with a pounding headache and an even heavier weight in my chest. The sting from Mark's words hadn't faded. If anything, it had settled deeper. I kept replaying that moment over and over like a bad movie. Mark, grinning like a shark, casually shredding not just my confidence but my marriage. At work things felt different. The office air seemed thicker, and I caught a few glances that weren't quite friendly. Maybe it was paranoia, or maybe Mark's little speech had set the tone for everyone else. Who knew? I kept my head down, trying to focus on my tasks, but my mind was elsewhere, swirling with questions I didn't want to ask. Why had Mark done it? Was he jealous? Did he want the promotion for himself? Or was it something more personal? My mind couldn't stop turning. That afternoon, I checked my email obsessively, waiting for any sign of the promotion. Nothing. Days went by. Then a quick, bland email from HR announcing that the position was filled by someone else. Someone less qualified. Someone whose wife was way hotter, as Mark had implied with that nasty grin. I sat in my cubicle, pretending to be shocked but really wanting to scream. I had been played, and by the person I trusted most. I needed answers. I started watching Mark more closely. His usual jokes now felt like thinly veiled threats. I overheard him chatting with co-workers, subtly planting doubts about me. Not just about my wife, but my work ethic, my fit for the team. Every word was a knife twisted slowly. I confronted him once, in a quiet hallway. "Why are you doing this, Mark? We've been friends for years." He laughed like I was some clueless fool. "Friend, please, this is business. And you? You're dead weight. Dead weight." That phrase hit me harder than any insult about my wife, because somewhere inside, I was starting to believe it. But then, a spark. A cold, dark idea that maybe I could turn the tables. I remembered Mark's Achilles heel. His ego. The way he bragged about his perfect life, his polished image, his fancy new apartment. I'd heard rumors, whispers about a little side hustle that wasn't exactly legal. Nothing concrete, but enough to make me curious. I began to dig. Over the next week, I started collecting information quietly. Late nights scrolling through social media, chatting with mutual acquaintances, piecing together Mark's perfect facade. And slowly, the cracks appeared. Secret meetings, suspicious transactions, friends who suddenly stopped returning calls. The more I found, the more my anger grew. Not just at Mark, but at myself for letting him get this far. I needed to act, but carefully. A direct confrontation would only make me look desperate. I had to be smarter, more ruthless. Then the opportunity came. The company's annual board meeting was just days away, with all the top executives and investors attending. Mark would be there, of course, strutting around like a peacock, ready to take credit for whatever success he'd claimed. I decided that was my stage. What I planned next was risky. It could destroy Mark's career, maybe even his freedom. But it was the only way to reclaim what he stole from me. No more hiding. No more pretending everything was fine. This was war, and I was ready to fight. The board meeting was the perfect stage. All the suits, all the power, and Mark blissfully unaware that his perfect little world was about to come crashing down. I walked in with a calm I didn't feel, my phone loaded with every piece of dirt I'd uncovered. The room buzzed with polite chatter, glasses clinking, the usual power plays in motion. Mark was in his element, smiling too wide, shaking hands, like he owned the place. I made my way to the executive table, sitting close enough to catch his eye. He noticed me. The look on his face was a mix of surprise and something else. Fear? Maybe. As the meeting began, I bided my time, letting the presentations drone on until the moment was right. Then, as the CEO called for questions, I raised my hand. Silence fell. The spotlight was mine. "Mark," I started, voice steady. "I think there's something the board should know before making any further decisions about leadership." Mark's smile faltered. He leaned forward, curiosity and suspicion flickering in his eyes. I pulled out my phone and connected it to the projector. The screen lit up with emails, photos, and even recordings, evidence of Mark's secret dealings. Bribery, embezzlement, a side business laundering money through shell companies. The kind of stuff you don't want investors or the SEC finding out about. The room erupted into whispers and gasps. The CEO's face went pale. Mark stammered, trying to deny, but the proof was overwhelming. And then, for the final blow, I added a picture of him at last month's party, the one where he mocked my wife in front of everyone, looking smug and self-satisfied. The same night he bragged about making sure I wouldn't get that promotion. The board was stunned. The CEO quickly ended the meeting and ordered an immediate internal investigation. Mark's downfall was swift and brutal. Within days he was suspended, his office emptied, and the whispers of scandal turned into headlines. I heard he was scrambling for a lawyer, but it was too late. And me? I didn't get the promotion right away. But something better happened. I gained respect, not just from the higher-ups, but from my colleagues who doubted me. Most importantly, I regained my dignity. As for my wife, the unworthy wife, according to Mark, she held me when I needed it most. She reminded me that her worth wasn't defined by anyone's shallow judgment, and that was the real victory. Mark's betrayal taught me something. Trust is a dangerous gamble. But revenge? Revenge is a chess game. And in this game, I was finally the one making the moves. So yeah, I was humiliated that night. But I came back stronger. And next time someone tries to tear me down, they'll learn one thing. Never underestimate a man with nothing left to lose.